HTML5 and CSS3 tutorials, CSS3 Colors. CSS3 has basically opened the Pandora's box, given web developers unbelievable options as far as using colors. So let's imagine this scenario. We know this is color red hex value. So let's remove that and let's say RGB. We already know what that stands for as well, red, green, blue. And we know the value of that hex code for color red. In this example, red was 255. So now let's say 255, 0 and 0. Yeah, this is RGB value, which is the same color code as before. But let's say RGBA. Yeah, what is that A about? That is to do with opacity, as in alpha transparency. Let's save this document, and for alpha value I've placed 1, which is 100%, and this color will not change. And yet if I say no, I want to tweak the alpha transparency value as well, then you can say 0. Let's say 3 being 30%. Let's save changes, and now transparency of this RGB value will change because we used RGBA. If I say no, that's too darkish, let's say 70% of that color red, so to speak. Now in CSS3 we also have options to apply to color element or background element as well. So let's continue with the color element and say HSL value, and HSL stands for hue, saturation and lightness. Hue, let's say 0. Saturation should be 100%, and lightness, as in brightness of that color, should be, let's say, 50%. Now, where in the world did I pull this from? Well, HSL is to do with color, so you can tweak the color in hue, you can saturate the color, and you can give brightness. There are many online HSL color generators, so keep that in mind. So let me save the changes here, and let me refresh this page, and I'm still looking at the red color, but using different values. We can also apply alpha transparency to HSL values as well by saying, you know what, let me say 0.40%. Let's save changes and let's refresh this. Now everything changed in terms of what's being calculated by the browser. So we can use RGB values, hex codes, primary colors, hue, saturation, lightness colors, HSL. We can even go ahead and say, no, I want to also control the transparency of that by saying HSLA value. And there are many color generators online, whether you're looking for the RGBA value or the hex code or HSLA value. Now in CSS3 we also have gradients. Let's look at that. Let me create a div, paste some dummy text and close the div. Let me style the background of this div. Let's style, but this time let's just use background instead of background color, because we can do that. Because when we use background color, we're using more specific CSS declaration. So in this example I can say linear hyphen gradient, and say something like this perhaps. Let's say yellow, pink, and red. Now that's linear gradient, right? So it's linear. Now let's refresh this page, and we have our div with linear gradient being applied to it. Let's say gradient radial, as in radial gradient. Let's see what happens. It's radial gradient. So gradients actually can get quite complex in CSS3, meaning I could have the radial or linear, let's imagine, linear gradient apply. Okay, let me put another color to see what happens. It's smart to do that when you're learning about CSS, to tweak things and say, okay, what if I do this? What if I do this? Make sense? Yeah, as I've said, CSS3 gradients can get quite complex. And you can have gradients applied from certain angles, from top, right, and all that stuff. But it creates beautiful effects if you start using them. Now, since this is a beginner's course, let me show you a couple of examples. There are CSS3 gradient generators whereby you can easily select any color that you want, play around with its values, double click on them, change the colors according to your wants, and then grab the code here, because this basically covers different browsers as well, and have here we can say that's vertical, but how about diagonal? So you can tweak things according to your wants to come up with beautiful gradients CSS3 allows you to use. But at the end of the day, I've shown you the basics for you to build upon, and I'll talk with you in the next video session.